is a breaking news alert from 7 Action News.
In that breaking news, the FBI has foiled a plot by a Michigan militia group to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. Criminal complaints have been filed against 6 men. And right now, the joint agency press conference, along with both of Michigan's U.S. attorneys and Attorney General Dana Nessel, beginning right now. Let's listen in.
Thank you for joining us for this important update on our efforts to keep Michigan safe. Law enforcement is always a team effort, and today I am grateful to stand alongside 4 leading partners who worked collaboratively and decisively to thwart a serious and credible threat to public safety. This effort would not have been possible without a unified front, including all levels of law enforcement focused on protecting the safety and well-being of our citizens. So today, I am joined by U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Michigan, Andrew Burge, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan, Matthew Schneider. Any moment now, we will have the FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Josh Hoaxhurst, and we have Michigan State Police Colonel Joe Gasper. The interagency effort represented here in tandem with my office culminated in the execution of several search warrants and arrests across the state, including in the communities of Grand Rapids, Heartland, Luther, Canton, Orion Township, Waterford, Belleville, Milford, Cadillac, Shelbyville, Plainwell, Zeeland, Munith, Ovid, Kalamazoo, Charlotte, Clarkston, Sterling Heights, and Shelby Township. Our efforts uncovered elaborate plans to endanger the lives of law enforcement officers, government officials, and the broader public. The multi-front operation to apprehend the suspects in question was carefully coordinated and skillfully executed, resulting, very fortunately, in no casualties. Now, before we announce the preliminary charges, I want to thank the hundreds of law enforcement officers who worked across agencies and across state lines, and we are very grateful for their safety. And with that, I'll ask U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Michigan, Mr. Andrew Burge, to tell you a little bit more about the effort.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Attorney General Nessel. Last night, the FBI and Michigan State Police arrested 6 individuals charged in a federal complaint with conspiring to kidnap the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer. According to the complaint, unsealed this morning, Adam Fox, Barry Croft, Ty Garbin, Caleb Franks, Daniel Harris, and Brandon Caserta conspired to kidnap the governor from her vacation home in the Western District of Michigan before the November election. Under federal law, each of these individuals faces a term of any number of years up to life in prison if convicted. Fox, Garbin, Franks, Harris, and Caserta are residents of Michigan. Croft is a resident of Delaware. All of us standing here today want the public to know that federal and state law enforcement are committed to working together to make sure violent extremists never succeed with their plans, particularly when they target our duly elected leaders. The federal complaint in this case alleges that the FBI began an investigation earlier this year after becoming aware that through social media that a group of individuals was discussing the violent overthrow of certain government and law enforcement components. Through confidential sources, undercover agents, and clandestine recordings, law enforcement learned particular individuals were planning to kidnap the governor and acting in furtherance of that plan. The alleged conspirators used operational security measures, including communicating by encrypted messaging platforms, and used code words and phrases in an attempt to avoid detection by law enforcement. Among other activities, members of this conspiracy on 2 occasions conducted coordinated surveillance on the governor's vacation home. Fox and Croft, in particular, according to the complaint, discussed detonating explosive devices to divert police from the area of the home. And Fox even inspected the underside of a Michigan highway bridge for places to seat an explosive. The complaint further alleges that Fox purchased a taser for use in the kidnapping and that the group successfully detonated an improvised explosive device wrapped with shrapnel to test its anti-personnel capabilities. The FBI and state police executed arrests of several of the conspirators when they were meeting on the east side of the state to pool funds for explosives and exchange tactical gear. This investigation is ongoing. Agents of the Detroit field office of the FBI and other members of their Joint Terrorism Task Force, including the Michigan State Police, are conducting this investigation. Agents in the Baltimore field office of the FBI, which covers Delaware, have also assisted. My office, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Michigan, is prosecuting this federal case. U.S. Attorney's offices in the Eastern District of Michigan and Delaware are and have been assisting. And the state of Michigan has brought related charges against other individuals. Of course, those charged with a crime still have rights that we respect. The allegations in the complaint are accusations. An defendant is presumed innocent until and unless proven guilty in a court of law. These defendants have begun to make their initial appearances in federal court, and the court will be scheduling their arraignments as well as bond and preliminary hearings. Now, it is my privilege to introduce to you the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan, Matthew Schneider, for some additional remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Good afternoon. All of us in Michigan can disagree about politics, but those disagreements should never, ever amount to violence. Because of the hard work of the men and women of law enforcement, police officers, and federal agents, violence has been prevented today. This case is being brought in the Western District of Michigan. Some of the defendants reside in the Eastern District, where some of the search warrants took place. But at the end of the day, what matters most is that the people of Michigan should be reassured that our state and federal governments are working together to keep us all safe. I wanted to thank Attorney General Nessel and her office for her outstanding work and her committed partnership. I also thank Colonel Gasper, the FBI, and of course U.S. Attorney Burge. Every day, police officers and federal agents put their lives on the line, and they do that for us. In this case, the agents made swift and safe arrests, and those were done by those officers and agents. We are most thankful to them. Thank you. It's my pleasure now to introduce the Director of the Michigan State Police, Colonel Joe Gasper.
Thank you, Attorney General Nessel, U.S. Attorneys Burge and Schneider, and thank you to the FBI also. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to everyone today, and I'd first like to start out by saying thank you to the men and women of the Michigan State Police, the FBI, and any additional agencies that assisted in this investigation. They not only worked tirelessly over the course of the last 24 to 48 hours, but also since the beginning of this investigation. So thank you, job well done. To the partners here today, I want to express our gratitude for the support and the cooperation, the partnership that all of us here are demonstrating. This case is one of the largest cases in recent history that the MSP has been involved in, and I think that the nature of this case is rather unprecedented, but it does send a very vivid reminder that while we may be in a time period of discourse, possibly even divisiveness and fighting across the nation, law enforcement stands united. And for those who think that law enforcement is distracted, let me assure you that we are very much engaged with taking our responsibility to protect the public very seriously. We took an oath to protect and defend and to serve, and together we will take swift action against anyone who is planning or seeking to commit violence or harm to anyone in the state of Michigan. Thank you again for the cooperation, and I will now turn it back to Attorney General Nessel.
Okay, well, unfortunately, it appears as though FBI Assistant Special Agent Hawkshurst has not made it with us in time, but is he here? He's on his way? Okay. Well, if he gets here when I'm done speaking, I will try to speak slowly so that we can make time for his appearance. But anyway, thanks again to the Colonel and to, of course, U.S. Attorneys Burge and Schneider. The FBI, state police, everyone's effort here, so important. But I'd like to announce that my office has filed additional charges in addition to the charges already announced by the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Western District. On account of the state, we have additional charges, so I'd like to announce the following preliminary charges pursuant to the Michigan Anti-Terrorism Act against 7 individuals, all of whom are now in custody, linked to the militia group Wolverine Watchmen and associates of Wolverine Watchmen. The individuals in custody are suspected to have attempted to identify the home addresses of law enforcement officers in order to target them, made threats of violence intended to instigate a civil war, and engaged in planning and training for an operation to attack the Capitol building of Michigan and to kidnap government officials, including the governor of Michigan. Now, it's important to note that these charges are subject to change after a complete review of the evidence obtained last night and may differ from those charged at the federal level. So we've issued the following charges against the following individuals. Paul Beller, age 21, of Milford, who is charged with 3 felony counts, providing material support for terrorist acts, a 20-year felony and or $20,000 fine, gang membership, a 20-year felony which may be served as a consecutive sentence, carrying or possessing a firearm during the commission of a felony, otherwise known as felony firearm, a 2-year mandatory prison sentence to be served consecutive to the other charges. Sean Fix, age 38, of Belleville, charged with 2 felony counts, providing material support for terrorist acts, a 20-year felony, carrying or possessing a firearm during the commission of a felony firearm. Eric Molitor, age 36, of Cadillac, charged with 2 felony counts, providing material support for terrorist acts, and carrying or possessing a firearm during the commission of a felony firearm. Michael Null, age 38, of Plainwell, charged with 2 felony counts, providing material support for terrorist acts, and carrying or possessing a firearm during the commission of a felony firearm. William Null, of Shelbyville, charged with 2 felony counts, providing material support for terrorist acts, and carrying or possessing a firearm during the commission of a felony firearm. And finally, Pete Musico, age 42, and Joseph Morrison, age 42, who live together in Munith, and these men are both charged with 4 felony counts, 1 count of threat of terrorism, a 20-year felony, and/or $20,000 fine, 1 count of gang membership, again, a 20-year felony that may be served as a consecutive sentence, 1 count each of providing material support for terrorist acts, and 1 count each for carrying or possessing a firearm during the commission of a felony firearm. And before I continue with my remarks, I see that FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Josh Hawkshurst, is here, and I'd like to bring him up for a few remarks.
Good morning. Thank you. On behalf of the FBI in Michigan, I would like to thank you and our partners of the U.S. Attorney's offices of both the Western and Eastern Districts of Michigan and the Michigan Attorney General's Office and the Michigan State Police. The primary mission of the FBI is to protect the American people and uphold the Constitution. This investigation is an example of our continued commitment to that mission to both protect the people of this state and to adhere to the rights reserved by the Constitution. The alleged conspirators are extremists who undertook a plot to kidnap a sitting governor. Whenever extremists move into the realm of actually plotting or planning violent acts, the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force stands ready to identify, disrupt, and dismantle their operations, preventing them from following through on those plans. An operation of this scope cannot occur without the assistance of law enforcement agencies, large and small. We're incredibly proud of the work of our agents, task force officers, and law enforcement partners during last night's operation and throughout the course of this investigation. We rely on the public's assistance to help keep us safe. If you see suspected criminal activity and want to report to the FBI, please call 1-800-CALL-FBI or submit tips online at tips.fbi.gov. Thank you.
Thank you, Special Agent. Well, with that, I just want to do a few things. First of all, I think it's important to give a shout out at least to my staff, since I have the ability to do that, since we're in our home offices here. And I just want to, with deep gratitude, thank Solicitor General Fadwa Hammoud, Chief Deputy Christina Grassi, Chief of our Criminal Division, Danielle Hackeman-Clark, John Pallas, our First Assistant in our Criminal Division, the Head of our Hate Crimes Division, Sunitha Dadumani, and Tom Fabus, who is the Chief of our Investigative Unit. So I wanted to say thanks to all of you. And in addition, of course, it's always important, again, to reiterate that a criminal charge is merely an allegation and the defendants are presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. But with that, I want to thank everyone up here in law enforcement and everyone who participated in this matter and who will continue, of course, to participate in this matter for their incredible efforts, their very brave efforts over the course of the past many months, and to say to them that your efforts have left the people of this state safer and the instruments of our government stronger. And I know that I speak on behalf of Michiganders all across this state when I say that we are grateful and we are indebted to you for your actions. So thank you very much.
And if you are just joining us, that was a joint agency press conference along with both of Michigan's U.S. attorneys and Attorney General Dana Nessel. 6 men have been arrested in connection with a plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan from her vacation home before the November election. We do have team coverage of this breaking news story today. Let's start with 7 Action News reporter Jim Kirstner live in Heartland, where agents spent most of the night raiding a home in connection with this investigation. And Jim, what stood out to you and what are you learning?
Actually, Brian, we're seeing 2 levels of charges here, the 6 that you just mentioned on the federal level, and then the Attorney General mentioned charges of 7 individuals on the state level. The federal charges, as you said, are conspiracy to kidnap the governor, among others, and then on the state level, she's announcing terrorism charges and that involves trying to track down law enforcement officials, looking up their home addresses. Some of these people are charged with supporting terrorist acts, gun charges, and so on, against 7 individuals on the state level. So we're looking at a total of 13. Just to take a look at this overview, the feds said in their criminal complaint that was unsealed earlier this morning that they started working on this case earlier this year. They were tipped off by some social media posts. Then they were able to obtain at least one confidential informant who was a member of a Michigan militia group. And in fact, the Attorney General mentioned a militia group by name, the Wolverine Watchdogs Militia. The federal complaint spells out how they got together. They would have meetings to discuss this plot. They would have tactical training meetings. One of the meetings happened down in Dublin, Ohio. One individual charged is from Delaware. They would have meetings to discuss this. I read in the complaint at one point they told people, if you don't want to participate in this, leave now. The complaint and the news conference, they discuss about putting the kidnapping of the governor at her residence, her vacation residence, which is up north near Traverse City. They talked about setting off some explosive devices, some improvised explosive devices, meaning some bombs. They built those. They were going to put one under a bridge. You just hear this, you read this criminal complaint, the evidence they gathered in the raid here that started about 7:30 last night. It's just jaw-dropping that they were pursuing the governor. It also says other governmental officials as well as law enforcement officials. Still a lot to unpack from this, but that's the initial response. When you hear about this, they talked about a lot of discourse in the United States right now, political differences, but they said as law enforcement, they will not tolerate any physical attacks, any threats against governmental officials or public members of the public as well. And this is a joint operation from the state with the Attorney General, Michigan State Police, as well as the feds, the Justice Department, and the FBI. Brian?
All right, Jim, and we will check back with you in later editions of 7 Action News for any developments and updates on this story. Let's turn now to the Capitol. Governor Gretchen Whitmer herself is expected to talk in just a couple of hours. Our Kim Russell joining us live from the Capitol now. Kim?
Yes, I'm going to be moving over there to cover what the governor has to say. Right now, I'm outside the Attorney General's office, just in case anyone who just spoke at that press conference that happened inside this building is available to speak to us and answer additional questions. Here's what we heard Attorney General Dana Nessel lay out as she talked about these charges that were just announced moments ago, state charges against, she said, 7 people who identified themselves as members of a group called the Wolverine Watchmen. One thing that stuck out to me is where these people were from. I wrote it down as she was announcing it. They were from all over Michigan, and several of them from Metro Detroit. She said one was a Belleville man. They were from Cadillac, Plainwell, Shelbyville, Milford, and Munich. And they all are facing a variety of charges. The charges include felony counts, including some of them providing materials for terrorist attacks, gang activity, firearms charges. They're all facing different charges in connection to their role in what happened. Jim talked a lot about the federal complaint, and I just want to add a little bit about it. They met over the summer and they were practicing drills, trying to figure out how they were going to do this. The original plan was to storm the Capitol and take hostages, including Whitmer. That was supposed to be done before the November election, but then they held meetings, and as they practiced, they decided to change their plan and abduct the governor at her vacation home and take her to a secure location in Wisconsin for what they called a trial. Now, in August, federal officials say the group allegedly conducted surveillance of her home on 2 occasions. During the press conference, we also learned that they were looking into targeting law enforcement officers to try to spark a civil war in our country. We're learning more information as the day goes on, and we'll continue to bring you more information about this plot as it becomes available. Live in Lansing, Kim Russell, back to you, Brian.
All right, Kim, thank you. We will continue, of course, to follow this story and bring you the latest as we learn more. And here's what we know right now. Just to recap for those that may be just joining us, a multi-agency investigation led to the arrest of 6 men accused of plotting to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer at her vacation home ahead of the November election. Operations taking place at roughly a dozen locations across the state. Adam Fox, Barry Croft, Ty Garvin, Caleb Franks, Daniel Harris, and Brandon Caserta have been named in a criminal complaint. And they're all part of this militia group with initial ideas to violently overthrow certain government components. Talks of recruiting 200 men roughly to storm the state capitol, violently hold hostages, kidnap the governor to try her for treason, and use Molotov cocktails on Capitol police vehicles. This group holding field training exercises for firearms and tactical drills, and discussing kidnapping Governor Whitmer at one of her vacation homes, and at times talking about murdering her or taking her to Wisconsin to hold her and try her. And they conducted surveillance on her summer home twice, according to the complaint, also purchasing night vision goggles, testing improvised explosive devices, and plotting to set bombs off to divert police during the kidnapping attempt. Hundreds of law enforcement individuals were involved in this operation that happened overnight in this months-long investigation. And then the Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel announcing additional preliminary charges under the Michigan Anti-Terrorism Act against individuals connected with a militia group calling themselves the Wolverine Watchmen. Now, coming up today at 3 p.m., Governor Gretchen Whitmer, she will hold a press conference responding to today's arrest. You can watch that live here on 7, WXYZ.com, or any of your favorite streaming devices.
This has been a breaking news.